we didn't really know anyone in crypto exactly. We
Yeah.
knew some players, like I sort of like knew like the employees of other exchanges, but I didn't know how to reach users, and I didn't know how to even start that. And is sort of like what you do on day one. You launch your exchange, and then I tweet. I didn't have followers. I mean, I don't know, if you email my mom, ask her if she wants to trade. Like, I mean, but it really was just like, what's even step one here to getting users? On the other hand, here are these products who have what, like 20 million users at the time, and those users are actively trading. I mean, I don't know, if you email my mom, ask her if she wants to trade. Like, I mean, but it really was just like, what's even step one here to getting users? On the other hand, here are these products who have what, like 20 million users. Those users are actively trading on the platform every day. A ton of value there, and them launching a great derivatives exchange, even if we only get half that or a third of that. And so that was sort of the thought behind it. Didn't really happen for complicated reasons, part of which was we ended up believing in ourselves more than we thought we would. Frankly, part of it was the FTT pre-sale. I think that was the first time that people generally started believing that FTX might be successful.
Was the FTT pre-sale?
Yeah.
When,
and
because that helped, because people, you guys marketed it well. I mean, you raised some money, which was always helpful.
Right. But it was the signaling. It was just like, what we took away from that was that other people thought this might be a success.
Do you think they believed in you guys because you had Alameda behind the firm?
Oh, I think, yeah,
right?
I think it's a lot of it was, that, and also that they, like, some of them knew the team, and I think that was most of it. I don't think it was like a super sophisticated calculation at the time, but I think people are sort of like, look, like, seems like they have a shot.
Yeah.
And I think that I feel like we had a shot.
Yeah. So walk us through the Blockfolio acquisition, because Ed Moncada has to be one of my favorite people in all of crypto. He's like, I don't know your relationship. I'm assuming you're close, but like,
Yep.
He's just a great guy. And
yeah, he's a really cool guy.
Did they approach you? Did you approach them? I know there were some bankers involved, like Spartan Group and Galaxy. Did someone like approach someone else? What happened here?
So I basically, like, they were looking for a white label partner. They wanted to put trading into Blockfolio. I think they approached a number of people, including us. But I think that they sort of, I think we were sort of the ones that they're most targeting with that. And then after a bit of that, they basically just sort of said, like, it's that's cool and all, but, like, should we do more? Like, should would you guys be interested in actually talking about, like, M&A? And I think, like, my immediate reaction is like, oh yeah, no, obviously that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like that seems like a thing that would fit. And so then we started talking about what an actual acquisition would look like, and sort of work that out over the next couple months.
And so, yeah, I think the trend of brands buying media companies and platforms that have users and basically distribution is going to become a lot more popular. Like you just saw
completely agree.
Like the SaaS space. I don't know if you know these companies, but HubSpot just acquired this newsletter called The Hustle. Like MailChimp, the email provider, acquired a company, a media company. Like I think it's going to become, and I think there are a few other deals that I know of that are going to go through in the coming months. That
completely agree.
I think it's just going to become more popular.
Totally agree. And I think there's just this thing of, you find some businesses which is like, I would give anything for a big user base. And you find other ones where, like, I have this massive user base, and for the life of me, like, I can't get, the monetization is a fucking grind. And, like, it's not that there's none, but it's like, really not getting that much, and it's a huge hassle. And it's just like an obvious sort of like pair. Yeah.
When you think about marketing, because we've talked to your marketing team, and I think we'll probably end up doing stuff in the future, but like how do you think about marketing in terms of, like, okay, if I can get, like, do you know your customer acquisition cost down to the T? Like, are you like, oh, if I can get a big whale to start using FTX, I'll spend $100,000 to acquire them? Or is it a little messier than that?
The problem is that not all customers are the same. And in fact, they're like different by orders of magnitude. And so like, sure, you could have a customer acquisition cost of like $2. We've ran campaigns at a customer acquisition cost of like 10 cents or 3 cents. And they're super repeatable, super scalable. They did not take a lot of work. We just sit there doing those all day and build up like the world's biggest user base. Like I think we could have 100 million users if we really wanted. The problem is that none of them would ever ever actually trade our product, right? Like all you have to do is say like you get a free $1 for signing up here, and now you have a $1 customer acquisition cost. The problem is that those customers are not selected for having been interested in your product. They're selecting for wanting to make a free $1. And this is like really fundamental to campaigns that you can run in crypto, because so many of them are basically paying people to sign up. That like, sure, you can do it, but like, what are you actually buying yourself? You know, are you buying yourself users who are going to be relevant at all? And the answer is often just no, you're not. And so where that leaves you is sort of like, you know, just pure customer acquisition cost doesn't tell you much. You need to know which customers you're getting. There are different sorts of customers. You're going to use different products. We're going to have like different expertises for different ones. It just sort of like all around quite disparate. And so what that means is that like you have to be just thinking a lot more specifically about what you're doing and what you're getting out of it and why you think it's good, especially when you're doing sort of more targeted campaigns. So anyway, that's sort of aside. I guess there are 3 lenses that I think about it through. One of which is basically just like, I don't know, like is this generically a good way of, you know, whatever advertising or whatever it is. I don't know how to think about that, but I don't know. You can sort of use standard metrics. I think it's worth a bit, not a ton. A second is this sort of sense of like, should this make sense? Like, should we be the one advertising here, or should we be the one acquiring this business? You know? And like, if you think the answer is yes, if you think that like it makes more sense for you to do it than the people currently doing it, then that's a compelling argument that like, I don't know, probably if the market clearing price is sufficient, then you should do it. You know? That's a second way. But there's also a third way, which I've been thinking about a lot more recently. If you look at like who has recruited like the most users to FTX, basically like people who have been sort of like customer support representatives or ambassadors, and it's not been the ambassadors with like the largest Twitter followings. That hasn't predicted it super well, which is sort of weird. So you would definitely think it would be, but it hasn't been. Instead, it's been ones that we'd never heard of, that no one had ever heard of, but they're great guys and they really care and they're excited to work with us and they want us to do well. They use the product, and it fucking shows. Like whenever they're trying to get people to use it, everyone can tell that they're authentic. Everyone can tell they actually sincerely really want them to use it and want it to go well.
Totally.
Anyway, I've been sort of like spending a lot of time just thinking about these effects and really trying to think about like, look, I'm sure there's lots of moderately good advertising campaigns we could run. Like there's just no chance there aren't. And I think a lot of people on our team are doing good jobs with that. But, you know, then you get to sort of like, what can you do to make a brand? I don't think the answers are obvious necessarily, but I do think that there's something there. And I think that like, you know, you can have some predictions about like which things you can do would have a chance at having huge impact. And that's sort of a thing I'm thinking about too. It's just like not just trying to have some impact, but really trying to like, you know, what could be the thing that everyone thinks of, you know, when they think of FTX if we do it, right? What could be a thing that could get 20 million users, not just like 20,000? And I think, you know, you're thinking bigger things, but I also think thinking bigger things isn't enough. And I think that like, you know, obviously we sort of like bought the Miami Heat, you know, stadium rights recently. And I think that's sort of, I don't know, I've been really excited with a lot of parts of that, including how much attention that's got, you know, like that's gotten more attention than anything we've ever done by a very large margin. And it hasn't even started yet. And I felt very differently about that than like a lot of similar sounding things. I think it has a lot of nice properties. I think it's, you know, it's a really exciting partnership in a way that like a lot of very similar things wouldn't be. I think that like there are a lot of teams that just like wouldn't have nearly that same impact. I think that there's, people keep talking about buying these little patches on like athletes' jerseys. Like everyone's trying to sell those nowadays. That's sort of the new hot shit. Like that you're talking to like a hip sports agent if they're trying to sell you on the idea of sponsoring the patches on their team's jerseys.
That's worthless. Don't do that.
It's worth like
yeah, it's worth
no one like. Can you name any jerseys on any patches on any athlete's jerseys? Like no.
Yeah.
Right. It's like no one cares about the 10th largest, like the 10th most visible brand of a team.
Totally.
Right.
So did the Miami Heat approach you, Sam, or did you approach them, or was there some agent here? Like how did this go down?
Yeah. So, I mean, without going into sort of all the details, like I think, at the beginning, we were definitely the ones reaching out to people. I mean, certainly since that's happened, we have had just a very large number of people approach us. I mean, it's sort of like, half the professional sporting teams in North America.
I know someone who works high up at an NFL team, and he reached out. He said, "Hey, do you know the CEO of FTX? We want to get some naming rights going with them." I was like, "I'm pretty sure you can reach out to them directly, but I'm also pretty sure there's more than one person reaching out to them."
Oh yeah, it's everyone. As soon as it's like, oh wait, of course that was going to happen.
Yeah, of course.
But and the other things, you get the adverse selection when people reach out to you. Like when people are reaching out to you, it's going to be the patches on the jerseys because that's what they've got left to sell, and they're hoping someone goes for.
Totally, yeah. That's really interesting. Well, I think it was a good play. Everyone loves Miami on Twitter, and you've got Francis Suarez, right? Who's not Miami-Dade, but City of Miami.
Yeah, it's a really nice synergy, and it's so I'm pretty excited about it. And excited what's going to come there. But we've got a number of other things like that. I mean, we sponsored. We're a big sponsor of Dave Portnoy now. On
with Blockfolio, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which I'm also really excited to see how that rolls out.
That was genius.
Yeah, he's also someone who people really care about, and people listen to, and I think that's big.
Totally.
I always sort of use this test internally of like, if I learned this person were driving a Tesla, would that make me more likely to buy a Tesla, or would I not care? It's like one of the things I ask myself with any naming deal.
I think it's a good proxy. Yeah. Do you flipping this around? Do you guys get acquisition offers a lot to acquire FTX?
We used to. I think that like we've gotten a number in our history. They've been dying down over time, basically because. So our sense is basically that like whenever people reach out to acquire us, their hope is that we're just going to sell way too cheap.
Yeah. Well, because the number of people who can actually acquire FTX is probably diminishing quite quickly as the value, the enterprise value goes up.
Exactly. Like very few people have like the actual cash on hand necessary to do that.
Have you ever gotten an acquisition offer from someone like a Bank of America or JP Morgan or someone like a more traditional firm?
We not really. Like we've gotten sort of like very brief kicking of the tires, but again, it's sort of like it got cut off in like stage 0.1 because basically just like quoted a number and they're like, oh yeah, no, not interested at that valuation. And again, I think like their hope was that they could. I mean, it's a reasonable thing for them to hope for. Also, it's just that like we just like quote way too low of a number.
Yeah. What's the value of FTX? Do you think right now?
It's a really interesting question, and obviously no one knows for sure. But I think you can sort of look at like, you can look at comparables here, right? Like you can look at what Coinbase and Kraken and BitMEX and the various URL companies, and I mean I don't know, who knows, but I think 20 is sort of the ballpark that you get to.
Yeah. One of your traders, I forget his name. Shoot, I really like the guy. But he had a good thread about March 12th or March 13th.
Yep, it's probably Trubico.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the interesting things that I learned there, because I'm not a trader, right? He's like, this was really tough for us. We handled it well. A lot of people handled it well. What you guys don't realize on the outside is how much worse this could have gone, right? He's like, you literally could have. He's like, you literally could have had Bitcoin going down to like $500 pretty quickly. And like, can you explain what happened on March 12th or 13th, what that day was like, and like how much worse it could have gone?
Yeah, it could have been a total fucking nightmare. I mean, and in particular, like the big thing is that you had these cascading liquidations, right? If it weren't for that, the risk would have been a lot lower because, frankly, no one who is holding lots of Bitcoin thought that it was worth. No one thought it was worth 3,500, but it did get that low. But everyone thought it was worth more than that. No one was like, "Oh yeah, no, you got to sell here. This is obviously like an overpriced Bitcoin." Even the people selling didn't think that because they didn't want to be selling. They're selling because they're getting liquidated, you know. And so I think it's one of these things where like was almost accidental that it printed up there, um, and or down there rather, and it just happened because someone gets liquidated, which triggers a liquidation of someone else, which triggers a liquidation of someone else, and eventually like billions of dollars got liquidated. The scary thing about those is that it's not clear why they stop. It could just keep going, and the problem is that like when you're driving down to that sort of range, um, there are a lot of businesses and deals in crypto that were just premised on the assumption that Bitcoin would never go below 5K.
Like mining businesses, a lot of lenders.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so there's just like a ton of other people who didn't have leveraged futures positions on, but who nonetheless had basically an economic situation that was unsustainable below 5K. And what you worry is that you have like this sort of 2008 like situation where eventually it becomes clear that like it might cascade through the whole industry. That like almost nothing will be left. That was the real worry. And it was just like every $1,000 that Bitcoin went down, another chunk of the industry became unprofitable.
So so how far away were we from going from shit really hitting the fan?
I mean,
are we talking hours?
Not very
days?
far.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
6 hours, 12 hours. I don't know. Like
crazy.
I mean, it's dropping pretty quickly at some points there. It wasn't like just slowly bleeding down. Like it went from like 9K to like 4K in about a day. So the answer can't be like, there's a limit to how long the answer to that can be, right? Like, we just actually didn't take that long to get very close to it. I think like in 1 hour it could have happened if it was a very bad hour, but each hour is not rated to be that hour. But if it had gone on for 6 to 12 hours, maybe one of them would have. It's not a whole lot of time.
Nuts. Do you think you'll run FTX and Alameda? And then we've got a third thing, Serum, which we haven't even talked about, which I don't think we'll have time for. But you can give a one-liner if you want to mention what it is, because there's a lot of investors listening. But like, do you think you'll run these three companies forever, or do you think eventually you'll put in CEOs in place? Like, what is Sam Bankman-Fried doing in 5 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, so Alameda, it's like already the case that I've taken a pretty big step back there, and I'm I'm not doing the day-to-day there, and am sort of excited to being able to hire a bunch of great people. In terms of the other ones, I mean, I think there's nothing imminently there, and I think that like they're in a position where like I mean, I think I'm important to them, and I think that they're important, and I want them to do well. But I mean, FTX in particular, I don't foresee myself taking the gas off of anytime soon. Serum's an interesting one because it's a decentralized ecosystem, and so I like did a lot to help it boot up. But over time, a lot of the drive is getting more and more people to be working on it and pushing on it and building on it.
Yeah. Do you think FTX will, like right now, I think I'm assuming how you look at FTX is, you're competing against like Coinbase and Binance and things like that and the other exchanges.
Yep.
Do you think eventually it will be more, to back it up, you guys are now trading fractional stock offerings of things like Tesla and Apple and Amazon and pre-IPO Coinbase. Do you guys see yourself competing eventually with New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ?
That'd be pretty cool. And I would be pretty sad if we never felt like a competitor to any stock exchanges, although we'll see where it goes. Maybe it ends up being international stock exchanges. I don't know for sure, but part of our thesis of the future is like we're an exchange. We have exchange technology, and you can use exchange technology to exchange things. Actually, lots of things, not just cryptocurrencies. And we've built a matching engine, and a risk engine, a liquidation engine, and a GUI and mobile app and API and a brand and customers, and all of those things help out with whatever trading you're offering.
Yeah. Let's we're gonna start to wind this down, Sam, so you can get a little sleep. Let's talk about health for a second.
Yep.
Are you still vegan, and do you still not drink?
Both are true.
Nice.
I don't religiously not drink. I think I have like 2 drinks a year. I don't know, something like that.
I think most people would call that not drinking.
Yep.
2 drinks a year. Yeah, I haven't been drinking for about 6 months. I feel much better than I did when I was drinking. All right, 3 kind of rapid fire questions here, and then you can ask me one question, and then you can hit the beanbag. There's a lot of non-crypto folks actually listening to this podcast. Let's call it 28-year-olds who maybe work in finance, they work in banking, they work in tech, they're looking to break into crypto. A lot of them are entrepreneurial. What is the biggest opportunity for entrepreneurs who are looking at the crypto space right now?
Yeah, and there's a ton. It's often the case in sort of rapidly exploding areas. I think the biggest things that I would say is whatever, I'm gonna have some opinions on like specifically which projects or companies or whatever you should work for or have high upside or I think are gonna be the future or something like that. But everyone's got opinions on that, and I don't know. I mean, you can just Google what I think there, or listen to whatever people think. I think what I would say more generally is like what I see is the thing that like can just bring huge value and you can get a lot of value from doing is not just from sort of generically, doing something or working on something important in crypto or something like that. It's basically like try hard, do a good job, and follow through to completion. And I think a lot of people, they just like fail one of those tests, and it's like when sort of a market and an ecosystem is this good, you don't need to be shooting to have you don't necessarily need to have chosen literally the best possible idea in order for it to work. The bar is a lot lower than that. But what you do need to do is actually have a product and actually get it to launch, and actually like release things and try and get users. You're not going to get users if you never try. And you're, and so I think what I'd say above anything else is like, yeah, build something, have it be a reasonable thing, have it be something people have asked for, and actually finish it and drive it to completion. And that's going to be more important than what it is you're working on.
What's the most controversial decision you've had to make at Alameda, or actually just in your career?
Oh boy, I mean, well, publicly or privately. I mean, behind the scenes, there's when it's sort of first starting up Alameda, there's a huge number of things that were complete messes, and I know how to manage exactly at that point, and ended up with like some people who were pissed off at each other and me, and I had to sort of resolve that. But in terms of sort of more publicly controversial things, I think like, I mean, it's a silly example, but like, when and how to expire the Trump contracts. I mean, that got a lot of that got pretty hot.
Yeah,
that is in hot water there.
Yeah, Twitter was fun.
I think at some point someone's asking for Trump March because Trump Feb wasn't giving enough time to see what would happen. I don't know. That's like one of them. I think there are a number of things that were not actively controversial, but people sort of like disagreed with at the time. I think like using USD instead of USDT as a base for FTX, having linear instead of inverse features, having a cross margin instead of isolated margin. I don't know. I think in retrospect, I'm happy with most of those decisions. But
yeah, cool. Well, we can finish if you want to ask me one question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like, what's your favorite and least favorite part of FTX?
We'll preface this by saying I'm not a trader. So we work with a lot of traders, right? And we help a lot of exchanges acquire customers who are traders. So I know the space decently well, but I'm not a trader. I think my favorite part of FTX is how quickly you guys launch new products and how you guys capitalize on culture, which I think a lot of companies don't understand that aspect of marketing. I'm a marketer and a salesperson, right? I'm not a product person. I'm not a trader. Yep. And so when I see companies that can move crazy quickly on product, I think it's cool. I respect it. I know how hard it is. When I see companies that move crazy quickly on marketing, I'm always blown away. And you guys do what I think 1 in 100 companies can do, which is you capture opportunity when culture changes, and that's really hard to do. My least favorite part is I'm in New York, and I can't sign up. I tried signing up for Blockfolio trading, and I got denied. So I could try to VPN in, or I could just play it by the rules. So that's I mean, you and every other exchange needs a bit license.
Yeah, it's somewhere on the roadmap. Maybe not in the immediate one, but we'd love to get there. I don't know, hopefully in the next couple of years. So
yeah, cool. Sam, when are you going to go to sleep tonight?
Oh geez, I mean, I've got some time from like 8:30 or 9 a.m. I think. I've got kind of back-to-back.
You crack me up, man.
Until then.
All right, well, nice work. Good work. Sam, this has been awesome. This is one of my favorite episodes I've ever recorded. This will be out very soon, so I hope everybody enjoys it. And again, this was Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX, Alameda, and Serum. So Sam, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.